That was really positive. Thank you very much. And it shows we can do it if we want to. Less wild than that wilding, but still out in the green spaces and looking at other ways to make nature our ally in her and our salvation, a farmer with a difference. James Smith, the Managing Director at Loddington Farm in Maidstone. James.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sean. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, thanks very much for the invitation to talk at this conference. I'm a fruit grower primarily, just south of Maidstone, not too far away. And we've been growing apples and pears there since about 1882, when my great-great-grandfather managed to buy the farm from the Cornwallis estate. And we've been there ever since. And I think my ambition has always been to be the generation that doesn't mess it all up. And I suppose this presentation was put together for something else. And so what I'm going to do is give you a quick summary and then go through the presentation and put some flesh on the bones. But fundamentally, a couple of years ago, probably 2 or 3 years ago, I was pretty disillusioned with farming. Not happy with the way that I felt we had to farm, and I couldn't make any money either. So historically, over my time being back at the farm since about 2003, we've been commercial apple growers growing apples and pears for the UK supermarkets, effectively supplying raw material into national and sometimes international supply chains, which was fairly unfulfilling, to be perfectly honest. Producing a wonderful crop of a healthy, nutritious food, but really got very little recognition and certainly never really got much money. Now, I know it's just like a farmer to start moaning, like right from the outset, but it's not really all about that. And this was actually taken earlier in the summer. So I'm a fruit grower mainly, but actually what underpins my farming now is about growing soil and actually becoming more of an ecosystem manager rather than just a farmer producing a crop, and fundamentally looking at soil health and how that can help me farm with nature. Loddington, we're a long-standing family farming business, and more recently we've rebranded as Loddington Farming with Nature. And then a year ago, I managed to purchase Owlet Fruit Juice, and that is now a value-added part of our business, and which is quite an interesting step, which gives us a brand and means that we can talk to consumers directly about what we're doing on the farm. Whereas when I used to just grow apples for Tesco's, it was just a red Tesco Gala apple. There are other supermarkets in the UK, of course. So a quick journey of what I've done. That's all fairly standard stuff, university education and bits and pieces. Being disillusioned, I have access to just under 300 acres of land in the southeast of England, which is an incredible opportunity. And to think that a few years ago, I wanted to go off and just get a day job and do something different, and which now seems ludicrous because I've kind of been through a bit of a journey recently. And I talk about this human dissonance and the difference between how I had to farm to be a commercial farmer and how I felt about what we were doing, this sort of love of nature versus the way we farm. And farming is a very binary situation where you tend to have farmland and then nature over there. And what we try and do is encourage farmers to put a bit more land for nature while we farm. And in all honesty, our farming hasn't been particularly good over the last 70 or 80 years. And it's meant that soil health has suffered, and we have eroded a lot of our natural capital, which has played its part in contributing to increased carbon levels in the atmosphere and everything else. I've been doing this for a couple of years. We've done things like getting rid of glyphosate and no fertilizers are applied on the soil. We're not organic. We're a regenerative farm trying to apply regenerative farming principles, i.e. we're trying to put stuff back rather than a reductionist way of farming. And so we're just trying to do things slowly, and just, we've got some orchards that are chemical free, but we're seeing some real challenges. And what's quite interesting, even when you're trying to do the right thing, Mother Nature still has her own opinion. So this year has been our worst farming year in living history, in that we had one whole farm hailed out of existence completely. We managed to pick some fruit for juice, And then we had such a poor crop set from 22 frosts in April, some of you might remember, and then no sunlight through the summer, and basically the wrong weather at whichever time of year we needed the opposite. So hence no one year is the same. So it's quite difficult for me to kind of draw baselines about how we're doing things differently at this stage. The imperative for change, I think, you know, I've talked about eroding natural capital, and what so much of our farming has done is where we've eroded the natural capital of the soil, what we've done is we've driven the carbon cycle up. There's a load of kind of rhetoric about shoving carbon into the soil and sequestering carbon and storing carbon. There's only a finite amount of carbon on this planet and in the atmosphere, and what we've got to do is we've got to get the carbon cycle deeper back into the soil. There's a massive opportunity to do this. You know, it's a very simple diagram, but the aim of regenerative farming is just to shove that carbon cycle down, because all we're doing, my analogy for farming is that we're using the soil as an engine, and what we're left with at the moment is like a 50cc moped engine. And so if you can take the CO2 from the atmosphere and drive it down through plant root activity and everything else into the soil, you can turn your soil into a V8. Now, I know that's not a very good analogy because we're moving away from petrol, but you know what I mean. Let's call it a 5 kilowatt battery to an 80 kilowatt battery. That's a bit more in tune. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take a commercial fruit growing enterprise and do it better. So really, just because it's all well and good if you decide you don't want to farm anymore and you just go and do something different, or you rewild your farm or turn it all over to nature. But I'm really just trying to come up with a farming system that embraces and it uses nature to help drive resilience in my own business. You can't jump in with both feet. Our kind of intensive commercial farming systems that we have now, I mean, a modern orchard now is nothing like the orchards of 60, 70 years ago, with sheep grazing underneath and everything else. You know, they're like little vineyards, really, weak trees. They've been developed to be high performance orchards, but they need a lot of inputs. And so we don't have natural farming systems. So how do you reintroduce nature? And ultimately you have to do it more slowly. So what I'm trying to do is come up with orchard designs for the future, which enable us to go back to how we used to farm in the past. You know, this isn't anything new. We had mixed farming before, and that's what we're trying to go back to. And so, you know, I don't want an intensive orchard. What I'm trying to do in our farming system is to stack enterprises. If I've only got 10 acres and I just grow apples, I've got 10 acres of apples. If I've got 10 acres and I have got apples, and then I put poultry through it for eggs and meat, and then I put sheep through it for lamb, and then I have beehives in there and I have honey, all of a sudden I've converted my 10 acres into 50 acres because I've stacked my enterprises on the available land I've got. So, and through that process, you can actually then drive nutrient cycling and carbon cycling back into our soil. Fundamentally, this little slide, and I hope some of you have noticed the 7-spot ladybird. When you look closely, there's likely to be more than 7 on it, but it does migrate around the slides as we go along. But that's definitely my little emblem now for Loddington Farm. It's the ladybird. But I think you can do things differently, and it will make a difference. But when you see things differently, when you see the way things work and how things are, once you change the way you see things, then you can affect massive change. And farming has got an incredible role to play. The opportunities for helping to drive change are immense. Fundamentally, every single person in this room and every person that's going to drive an electric vehicle or every person that's going to have their home insulated eats food. Every single thing we eat ultimately comes from the soil. Ultimately, we come from the soil, human as in humus. So if we get the farming right and we rebuild our soil health and we start to drive that, I think everything else will become easier. So get it right on the farm. Farming covers so much land, you know. When you look at the ability to sequester carbon or to cycle carbon, if the United States cultivated land area increased their soil carbon by 1% per year, which is possible in some places, not so easy in others, they would actually offset all of their carbon emissions in that year. And that's not much different for most other countries. So farming has a huge role to play. But if any one individual will say, well, I'm not a farmer, just think about what you're buying and just think about where your food comes from and put a face on your food, meet a farmer, and just make some positive choices. Thank you.